Hey everybody, I am back for another Heresy Hump Day today. And so I think I've actually tweaked some of my camera stuff. I know I've been talking about this the last couple of times. Last time it looked like I was doing my video in front of the sun. I apologize for that. I've kind of got my desk lamp in front of me away. I should have tested that more. But I have got a nice agenda today, lots of stuff. More content than usual for Heresy Hump Day, so I'm hoping to get through all of it within an hour. Today, what I have is, of course, a sponsored alcohol, but I have a quick table update. Before that, I have a bit of an unboxing, like a loot of like a box that I've ordered from an online store. I have, let's see, one of the main topics for the evening, Blade Runner 2049. Without spoilers. So for those of you that haven't watched it, I'll be doing it in such a way that you won't have to worry about spoilers. As well, I have a topic for the wargaming folks, or a wargaming specific topic. The idea of repainting your miniatures once you've already painted them, or as well, the idea of getting locked into a color scheme because you're kind of like doing a big army, and you kind of get locked into a certain kind of scheme going forward because of what you've done in the past. So it's kind of related, the way I'm talking about it. So, without further ado, we will start with a sponsored alcohol. So, I had this, I'm starting to get to the point now where I've done enough of these that I'm like wondering, have I done this one before, you know, without going back? And I'm always trying to do something new. And so what I did is I reached to the back of my Scotch cabinet and I pulled out a bottle that I've just not opened yet or ever had before. So this is a first time. Now, funny enough, this one's called Aberlour, A-B-E-R-L-O-U-R. It's a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. Has very long intro here on it, but basically getting past the sales pitch, it says the intense whiskey has a strong influence of sherry wood, soft flavors of cream peach, and hints of ripe apricots are balanced by notes of chocolate and orange zest. Licorice, honey, and oak emerge, leading to a long, smooth finish. Now, if this is a potent single malt Scotch, I would be hard-pressed to taste like 6 or 7 different things. I'm hoping that I can taste 1 or 2 of them within the Scotch itself. That's quite a tall order of flavors. But the hardest thing about this is getting this thing off. This is like, I don't know if you can see this here, but this thing, which is also on this, and it came on here like that, this was all one piece. It was almost like wax, like it was plastic molded onto this. I had to take a hobby knife and cut around it just to get this thing off. I've never had a Scotch that had was that hard to get into. Very interesting. So we will try this out. I definitely don't taste any peach and apricots. It's a nice Scotch. I may actually get an aftertaste of a little bit of the bitterness that you would taste in chocolate, like actual chocolate, like unsweetened chocolate. But Half of the other stuff they talk about I don't actually taste. But it does taste good. It does taste like scotch, and does taste like a nice scotch at that. It is very smooth, very nice. But, yeah, I don't taste all those things they talked about. All right. So, just being honest. So, I'm going to do a little bit of a loot unboxing. I don't do these too often. I don't get boxes in the mail that are like combinations of things that often. This one here is unopened. I do know what's in this because or what's supposed to be, but sometimes it is fun just to see what people are doing, like what they're investing in, what they're focused on at that moment, or for whatever reason what they buy. So I just took it as an opportunity to pull this stuff out. So the biggest thing from like a price perspective and size in the box that I got is something from Star Wars Armada. Now look at that, got the light there. What I ended up getting, are the Hammerhead Corvettes for Star Wars Armada. So you get 2 ships in it. You're supposed to get other stuff. I'm not going to open the box today, but you do get cards and other things in it. They are kind of really nice looking ships. They're smaller ships, but you get 2 of them. This was the ship that was actually in Star Wars Rogue One. And it was kind of, it's one of its big things is that it was like basically rammed an Imperial ship. And so it has that front on that almost looks like a bit of an anchor going sideways, which was kind of cool. I haven't bought something for Star Wars Armada in a while, and it's no reflection on the game. I mean, I play it and pick it up every so often. We're due to play it soon, and I've been wanting these for a while. I mean, this is not the latest release. This is from the last release, and I like to mix different options up. They have some nice releases coming out now, but I thought these would be neat just to mix up and try in the game, and so I purchased these. The main reason that I had actually gotten my this order was actually for Zombicide that I play with my family. Now, let's see here. We've been playing Zombicide quite a bit at the house. And one of the things that we noticed is particularly the thing that you pass around to show whose turn it is. But a number of the tokens are starting to get beat up a little bit because we're playing it so often. I didn't even know that there was these on the bottom that came with it. I don't even know what these are. Like to show a broken wall, I suppose. I have to look at it. I was just expecting tokens that sort of came with the game, just to get them in hard plastic. And and it's just because we get so much game time out of it. In particular, I am going away this weekend with my family to our sort of retreat that we go to sometimes. It's been a while. And we're going to play a bunch of Zombicide. And so, yeah, I kind of thought this was a worthwhile investment because we have a lot more to play of Zombicide still. I still have the expansion to play with them. And so I thought getting the hard plastic was a bit of a good investment since we use it so much. Yeah, so I picked this up, and it was the main reason for placing the order. I got kind of a fairly simple thing. Is that going to focus? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it. Probably because this is just a webcam here. But it's a wargaming, it's an Army Painter detail brush. I've never used Army Painter before. I needed a detail brush. I've been using a lot of the Privateer Press brushes. They're detail brushes. I quite like their brush, but my store was out of them. And so, because I was placing this order, I thought I would... They didn't have any as well, even the place that I ordered, so I thought I'd try Army Painter. This is about the size of the brush I was trying to replace, just to update my detail brush. So, I'll be interested to try that out. That'll be neat. Lastly, I got 2 blisters for Saga. So Saga, as you guys know, 2.0 for Saga is dropping really soon. For those of you that aren't aware, the pre-order is already up on Gripping Beast. I am going to be getting that. I'm doing the pre-order to get the second edition of the rules, as well as the second edition of the rules, as well as the Dark Ages book that will come with the battle boards. And so what I'm doing, I think I've already mentioned on the channel for Saga, is I'm going to be painting up a Scots army that I already have, and then I'm going to be kind of doing that for 2.0. I may just start the rules with my Danes while I'm painting it, but I'm definitely painting up Scots. And so I ended up getting a Celtic priest, and so I've got this guy. I think if I turn him this way, you can see him here inside the box there. He's got like a club in one hand, looks like he's got a cross in the other, so that'll be very cool. I've never really used the priest rules much. I played one game where somebody had the priest rules. Sorry, getting a focus here. Looks like I've put myself out of focus from moving things up here. There we go. Sorry about that. And then I also have a Scots war banner, which is just a guy holding a war banner. So, yeah. So I'm really excited to kind of include these into the greater Scots war band that I'm going to be doing. Looking forward to trying the Scots battle board out. Yeah. So that is that. And now, for a moment, I am going to just do a table down. Hey everybody, so I have made some progress, quite a bit, I think, on my Mordheim Beastmen for Idikpir's New Year's Painting Challenge. And I'll kind of show, I still have a bit of work to do, but the way the sort of final look of some of the skin tones and fur is really shaped up to where I want it to be, and I've painted a lot of the details. The blue guys I am quite liking more than they were. I've made them a little bit whiter, and I have also lightened up in some cases the fur, like on the bottom. They had a bit. It was a bit browner before. It's a bit lighter with brown undertone, and I've also kind of been working on the heads and some of the accessories on the models. I'll kind of show some of the other blue guys real quick before I go to the other colors. Same with this guy here. With this one, because I was kind of lighter to begin with, I didn't change it much from the last video, but I did do the fur. I don't know what you guys think, but for that remember when I showed on other videos the Warhammer color schemes and how I was going for this style, but I honestly feel the way they did it, it was less blue and it was more gray undertone. So like there was a darker gray and then lighter. And I'm almost thinking that I'll do this style, but with more of a gray undertone than blue for my regular Beastmen army. I'll emulate this, but where you see blue, it's going to be more gray. To try to, what I'm really trying to simulate is sort of a lighter colored fur. And as Helcarax had said once, these are kind of looking, I think he meant it in a cool way, that these are kind of looking like White Walkers, you know. I want them to look like Beastmen. I suppose they're, you know, some of the White Walkers, they're zombies, but some of them could be, I don't know, I guess the White Walkers, I think they're more zombies than Beastmen, but yeah, like, I think I'm going to try to go more gray, similar color scheme, but gray. I still have work to do, like, on the leather and lots of stuff. But yeah, so those are the blue ones. Now I have two that are more of like an earthy brown. They actually had blue more on the fur underneath, below, as opposed to the skin tones above. And I do like the way this kind of came out. Also have it on the hair. I do think I could easily continue with this, like for the skin tones and stuff, for some of the Beastmen. I think it looks cool. And then I have the Shaman, who has a similar... I have the start of a goblin head there below on his side. Instead of regular heads, he's got a goblin head. Then I have these guys I really do like, this color scheme. It's just fits very natural with the Beastmen look, in my opinion. So they're kind of highlighted up a bit more orangey on the brown. So I'm very happy with the way that that guy's looking. I've got another one here. It's funny, this head, Jankmaster was talking, he was laughing about the glasses. It's still wearing its glasses, the head on this one. Thought that was funny. But glasses are expensive. Gotta hold on to them even in death. And now I've got the leader. And I am happy with the color scheme on this guy. I've also been painting the woman that he's taken captive here. Yeah. So that's that guy. So yeah, I think these guys are coming along. I am happy. I kind of know definitely what I'm going to do now with my Minotaur, Centaur, and my two Hounds, in the sense that they're going to be a combination of these colors. So I kind of know how to approach it this time. It should be a little bit faster. It's funny, these guys kind of scared me a little bit, like, because trying new stuff is hard. I mean, like, it's good to throw yourself out there, in my opinion, and to try something new rather than just rely on your toolkit. But it can come at a price sometimes. It doesn't always work out. And in this case, I am happy with the way that it turned out. All right, so back to the chat. All right, everybody, so back on schedule. Basically, I wanted to talk about Blade Runner 2049. Now, I am going to attempt and sort of promise that I'm not going to have any spoilers in here. I don't think I really need to spoil this to be able to articulate my thoughts on the movie. I think I can speak about it in general senses or general concepts, and without actually mentioning particulars about the characters or the plot specifics. But I really wanted to talk about it because I'll start out by saying, and many of you may, who are interested in Blade Runner, know what I'm going to say, but I was really, really amazed as to how good Blade Runner 2049 was. I'm a fan of the first movie. I can't claim to have watched it when it first came out, and I've not watched it for 20 years. I mean, but I've watched it for a while now. I mean, I've owned it for a while. I've enjoyed the movie quite a bit. I love the cerebral pace, the sort of attention to detail in Blade Runner, in the original with Harrison Ford. I love the characters. Rutger Hauer, I really just loved his performance. I love some of the lines. I love the concepts. And, so it's just been a long-time favorite. Now, I anticipated... I'll just throw this in there. When I think back to 2017, there were really 5 movies that sort of hit the mark for me as far as being anticipated or really liking them. And the movies were Blade Runner 2049, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Alien Covenant. And just quickly, I'll just say that, I can easily say that Blade Runner 2049 is my favorite film from 2017. Having said that, I'm a huge fan of Thor Ragnarok. It's just a very different type of film. And I just, based on what I say on this video, you may understand after I say it that I just can't allow it to be number one after having seen 2049, even though at the time of the closing of December 31st, if you would have asked me, I would have said Thor Ragnarok for sure. Favorite movies real quick. I know this is not Blade Runner 2049, but of those ones, like Blade Runner 2049, favorite, Thor Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Alien Covenant. I was looking forward to Spider-Man Homecoming, but it was really a bit of a sleeper. It wasn't highly anticipated, and I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. And I still liked Alien Covenant, but it definitely wasn't as up there as the other films. So now, Blade Runner 2049, I wouldn't say fears that kept me up at night, but I had, when I thought about it, I don't know if you've ever liked something, and then when something was coming out, like a sequel, or they were continuing it, or it could be anything from a movie to a music album to a game, a role-playing game, a tabletop game. You worry as to whether it's going to be as good as the one that you have already, or is it good as the one that you're playing, or is it as good as the last movie that you love? Kind of a common phenomena, I think, with some folks. I wasn't worried, but I had expectations that I was going to be let down with the movie. I did like the trailer, but honestly, as much as the trailer looked cool, and I love the little sequence that they released that's not in the movie that you can watch on YouTube. It was like I forget the name of it, but basically they did a sequence of the film that was not it seemed like it was like part of the film, but it wasn't. It was done really well, and I was impressed with it. Really impressed with it. But even after all of that, I still thought I was going to be disappointed. I try not to be a pessimist, but and the reason why I thought I was going to be disappointed, I think it's important to talk about this before I say how much I liked it, is that I had basic thoughts that it wasn't going to be just as good as the first, and that was like my inclination, because it's a sequel 20 years later. They're never as good as the first, and that was just a general feeling of that I expected that to be the case. Then I'll kind of just talk about some specifics, like Harrison Ford. I thought this was going to be another just continuing an old role and just being there to somehow hand it off to the next generation, or to just sort of milk that nostalgic component of it. I have a lot of reasons for that, to think that. Not worth even really going into, but I think it's a phenomena that sometimes comes up when actors revisit roles from a long time ago that are highly anticipated. I thought that I was worried that Ryan Gosling's role was going to perhaps somehow try to mirror Harrison Ford's role, because we know going into the movie that he's a Blade Runner. We know that. It's not a spoiler. They even kind of say it, like, I used to have your job, and it's not spoilers if I mention trailers, reference to trailers in my opinion, and there are lines in the trailer that give that away. It's just clear common knowledge. So I thought, in order to make this one successful, there's a good chance they're going to try to leverage the recipe that made the first one successful and just kind of make his role very similar in the way he delivers it. Another, potential source of disappointment for me. I guess I could combine special effects and music and say, because the first film, Blade Runner, was so defining in its use of synth music and a style of music and special effects and the attention to detail and the special effects, that I thought there's a really good chance that they're going to do amazing with that, but it's going to be overdone, and they're going to overcompensate on those things in order to deliver. That, like, somehow the plot or the acting or something is going to suffer at the expense of it being like a visual ecstasy of, like, film, but that there's going to be things that are going to suffer because of that. They're going to overcompensate. I kind of led into this one by just saying that I really felt that perhaps the plot may just not be nearly as good, because oftentimes when you have something so good in a plot, you don't find that its sequel lives up to it. And some of the ways that can happen, and I kind of made some notes here, was just like the complexity of the plot from the first film. Like, just it may not be able to live up to it. So, without going into any details in the film, like specifics, I can kind of run down the list there and say in all of those points I was wrong. And in all those points, the movie was amazing to the benefit of the film. So, Harrison Ford's role, granted, he's not the leading role in the film, so take that. Like, we pretty much know that he's not the leading role in the film. Based on the breadth of his role and involvement in the film, he did one of the better jobs acting, in one of these revisiting roles that I've seen. I would have to say it's the best. I really, really enjoyed Harrison Ford's role in this film. And I felt that it was a very legitimate role in the film and done extremely well. Ryan Gosling entered this with a role and delivered on it in a way that was not reliant on Decker or Harrison Ford's character from the first film. He made the role his own in his own way, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think he did an excellent job. It was very well done, is all I can say without spoiling the film. And so I thought he didn't just borrow on things from the previous film and leverage that to just sort of mold himself into some sort of character that's kind of trapped by the way a Blade Runner is portrayed in the first film. The special effects and the music were truly amazing. I need to really go back and watch the original film. Sorry about that. I really do need to go back and watch the original film to sort of see the special effects and compare them now having seen the sequel again. But I felt that the use of special effects and music was not overdone. The special effects were amazing, and where they were used, if overdone means just completely awesome, then they were overdone. But what I mean is they didn't rely on them to deliver the film. The film is a standalone film in of itself. It doesn't require them for the plot and the story and the dialogue and the performances. But where they are used, they're timely and awesome. And they really do link up into the original film amazingly well. And perhaps I'm being over positive, or I guess because just having seen it recently, but I have to decide still whether I how I feel about them in comparison to the original, because I'm wondering whether I actually even like them better than the original. I mean, I have to go back. I mean, it's hard to beat the original in the sense that it was the first time it was done, it was unique, and it's just classic, but I love this so much that I kind of want to now watch the original and this one again and again and kind of formulate an opinion on that. It's not necessary because I like them both, but I'm interested in doing that. That's how kind of much I like this second one. And then what I would say about the plot is that in many respects, the first film had many little things that it took people over the years to ruminate on, to develop opinions on and things. I think this one is going to do the same for folks. I think people are going to be talking about this one for a long time. I will admit there are many aspects to it that I still haven't fully grasped in the film. I'm going to be rewatching this and formulating opinions on certain aspects to the story and things that are said and done in little nuances for a long time. I think you don't need to overanalyze it and see it many times to just enjoy it, but I think there's enough there that this can be a rewatch for you if you like to really immerse yourself into the story and the messages being told. Now, there are many messages that and plot components that tag onto the original film, but then there are many, I think, that are taken and expanded upon and new ones created in this second film. And so I'm not going to copy other reviewers. I will admit I've watched some other reviews, but a common thread that I have seen people say that I completely agree with is that this film, you do not get a feeling like they're doing this to reboot the Blade Runner universe for like the next generation. Like, you don't get a feeling that all of a sudden we're going to be seeing like many, many, many other Blade Runners. Regardless of whether that happens or whether that was the intention, I'm going to kind of get to that in a second, this film feels very much like a story in a standalone film, like a piece of art. And you don't get that impression like, oh, this is what they're trying to do. That never really entered my mind after watching it. Now, many of you may know, despite the hype for this movie, and despite, I think, positive critical acclaim among critics and reviewers, this didn't do extremely well in the box office for what they spent. But then, even before watching this film, I said to myself, well, that might be a good thing, because the original Blade Runner did not do extremely well in the box office. It competed with other movies that were coming out at the time and did not really win out. It had very much a cult following over the years and became sort of for many, a hallmark sci-fi film. If you follow the basic recipe for Blade Runner, and you'd really try to create and stay true to the original and take it even further, it may mean that you almost can't be successful in the box office with the general public. I actually think that is probably the case. Many films that do extremely well with the general public can't follow the recipe that Blade Runner did and be a great film in the way that Blade Runner has, in my opinion. And so it's a tough spot, right? Because we may not see another Blade Runner that is of the equivalent of the first two films, due to that it's almost a recipe for not success, despite how amazing it is. It's almost like there are certain kinds of cars, performance vehicles, that can't be made for general production, but they're completely amazing works of art and pieces of machinery on their own. To me, Blade Runner 2049 is that as a movie. And so that'll be the last thing I say on it. And so I don't think I've spoiled this for anyone, but I really highly encourage you, if you liked the first film, to watch Blade Runner 2049. It was an amazing, amazing extension of the universe. I honestly don't think it could have been done better, because you can always find fault with something. I don't think they could have done it any better than they did. I was so blown away by it. All right, so take that as a good recommendation. So, last topic of the evening. This sounds really weird. The reason why I'm combining this idea of repainting your miniatures or army with being stuck in a paint scheme that you've started, I guess that doesn't sound so unlike each other when I say it like that. But when I wrote it down, it looked like I was trying to say two different subjects. But for me, it relates to the fact that I've talked with Helcorex about doing a Oldhammer project this spring and doing Eldar. Now, initially, when I was talking about doing Eldar Oldhammer miniatures and that I purchased some, I was talking about doing something different than the Biel-Tan that I've always done in the past, my army, Eldar army. And so the green and white color scheme. And I was thinking about doing Space Pirates and doing I'm forgetting the name of them because I researched it and I picked this army. They were called the Crimson something. And they were actually, even though they were called the Crimson something, they were purple and blue. I'll mention that later, the actual name. But they're basically an old space elves sort of pirate sort of warband, like army. And I like the idea of that color scheme, and I thought I'll do Eldar like in a different color scheme, and it'll be cool because it'll be Rogue Trader, it'll be like space elves, space pirates, and that'll be great. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it sounds really good, and it's purple and blue. But as time has went on, I thought about it more and more, and when I started this channel, I started it, like my very first videos were starting with my Biel-Tan Eldar, if you go back all the way to the beginning. And I was really learning to paint again with doing Bielton Eldar. And over the years, one of the ways I've compensated from getting locked into certain kinds of color schemes with it was to vary things a bit. So when 6th edition came out, I started using a lighter green for certain types of troops. I guess I had some Wraith Guard that I did with the original Bielton scheme, but then when the new Wraith Guard came out in 6th edition, I switched it up just a little bit. You know, I used my airbrush a little bit, and I just kind of did some edge highlighting and some shading that I hadn't done with the originals. And so I did really end up with an army over time that did not look like I painted it all at once, and it did not look like I even, you know, from a skill level, like it was all different. Like I think I got better over time. Granted, it's still been a long time since I've been painting Eldar. But then even with my color schemes, there are times when the greens don't match. I've used different greens. I've kind of messed around with it. And that's kind of what I ended up with. And even though that's like maybe your first army and like maybe one that you really like the most, sometimes it's the one that you feel the least good about, like with your painting. And so I thought to myself recently, and I thought, you know, I love the Bielton army. I love the color scheme. Why don't I just, with my Oldhammer army, just stay with it, but just try to paint my Oldhammer miniatures at my best skill level today, but paint them all kind of consistent now, and have fun with that, because I love the color scheme. And it'll be kind of like revisiting Bielton, because I started that in 2011, now we're going into 2018, it's like all these years later, going back to the Bielton. So then, because I've been thinking about that a lot, I thought this might be a good topic of discussion. For whatever reason, do you ever feel that you have the need to either repaint stuff that you used to have that you just started with? And so for me, an example of that would be my original metal Wraith Guard. I have 10 of them that are in a color scheme that I'd probably, if I was to do them today, and if I was to do them with my Oldhammer army here, I would do them very differently. Now, I've got my green ones that are both the Wraith Blades, Magnetized, and Wraith Guard. So I have multiple arms, and I would likely not repaint those, my plastic ones. I'm fairly happy with the way those came out. If you look at you're probably familiar with them. Every intro starts with them on my videos. But my original metal ones, which I love those metal sculpts too, I was kind of thinking maybe I'll just strip them and just do them up again alongside my Eldar, my old school Eldar I'm going to be painting for the Oldhammer. You ever do that? Does anybody ever do that? I generally avoid that. I don't like repainting things again. I don't even really like repainting the same things again, like to expand. Sometimes I'd always like to do new stuff. But I'm thinking in this case I might look forward to that, because I do like the unit in general. And I'm almost kind of interested in doing that. But then forget so that's one concept, this idea of repainting stuff you've already done and finished. So you're kind of destroying your work, you know, to actually do it again. But then what about this idea of getting locked into a color scheme? Like, do you ever have issues where you do a particular color scheme, but then you either do it slightly differently over time because you're kind of learning, and then you end up with like a lot of stuff that looks a little bit different? Or do you ever get locked into like a skill level where you do your army a certain way, and let's say it was before you did wet blending and varied your colors, or it was before you did edge highlighting, or it was before you used a particular type of paint that creates this effect that's very noticeable, and then you end up with a bit of a mishmash within your army. Do you just continue to go on and improve and just have a mix, or do you sometimes hold yourself back to a lower standard in your own opinion, in order to keep your army looking the same? And so it's interesting. Most of my stuff I don't have that problem with. Like even my bolt action, my bolt action Americans, there are times when I've come back to it, and I'm planning on coming back to it in the future with things. I mostly can get by with the way I did it originally, you know, and feel okay about it. And if they do, some of them do look better on the table with the sort of army greens, like the olive drab and some of that stuff. They still look appropriate together, but I find with some of the fantasy stuff or the sci-fi, it's sometimes more noticeable. But having said that, I could imagine that folks that watch the channel that are doing primarily historical stuff could feel the same way about things. I mean, I could see somebody still doing armor a certain way. Like maybe they're doing Germans with camo, but then they kind of like to do their camo a little bit differently since starting the army now, and they have found ways to improve it. But then you have like a mixture. And I could see that, somebody feeling the same way about that at times. I could see, I guess, with colonials, like because I do a lot of the musket and tomahawks, with my British that I started doing, learning how to paint, you know, more colonial style uniforms. I could see over time changing it up and then having a bit of a mixture, and not feeling great about that. And in most cases, I don't repaint. I just use them to game with, and if I want to paint more, I just buy more and paint more. This is sort of the first time that I've really thought about it. Like, so my two questions that I've had to myself recently was, do I repaint my Wraith Guard in order to just utilize those old models that I have and just enjoy painting them again in either my current style today or in the Crimson Sword or the blue and purple sort of Space Elf style, and just to have them match those old Hammer miniatures. Considering I have newer ones alongside them that I've got that are in the Bieltan color scheme. Or, beyond that, the greater question is to, and this is really just personal preference, I know the answer is do what you want to do, but I'm kind of have this sort of creative dilemma as to whether I want to stick with my old scheme. And it's not because I'm paralyzed by it, like to keep it all Bieltan. It's just that I really like it, but I almost want another shot at Bieltan at today's standard of my painting, because I look back on, and some of the stuff, like I'm looking right now at my Wind Rider jet bikes, and I do like the way they came out. Like I love the way those look. Like I like a lot of my Eldar that I painted a long time ago. But I still sometimes feel like with some of them, like I just kind of want to, and I'm thinking back to like my early Guardians when I started the channel. They're much more gray than white, and I used a lot of dips, like quick shade, which can look very nice and has a nice look to it. But I kind of today, I don't use quick shade much anymore, if at all. Only in some rare circumstances do I do it. I mainly work with washes and highlighting up. I do still use the quick shade ink wash at times for certain things like faces and certain things, you know, even armor and things like that. Like, it's not a quick shade dip. It's, although it is a little thicker than a standard wash, I do find it adds nice rich tones, and I can even highlight up on top of it. And that's just a completely different process, that Army Painter ink, than the quick shade thick stuff enamel. But yeah, so a lot of that stuff I use those techniques, and like when I paint, I'd like to maybe consider trying some Guardians with my techniques today that won't look anything like that, but just continuing with the Bieltan. So I know you guys can't tell me what I should do, you know, like as far as like try the new army or stick with the Bieltan. That's more just sort of like personal preference. But I'm interested in your thoughts on whether you ever repaint for any reason old models, or whether you ever have the dilemma and how you deal with it of either as you're expanding upon your army, the decisions you make on earlier color schemes, and I guess your progress at that time, and how you over time accommodate for that. Do you not worry about it at all, which is a very valid answer? Do you like try to hold back on certain things to keep it the way it was before and reserve newer techniques for newer things you're doing? Do you just by not worrying about it at all, I guess you could just say that you're using your new techniques, and if something looks better, then doesn't matter, put that one up front and just put the other ones behind it. Do you ever repaint them? And so I think it's an interesting kind of concept. So yeah, I think that's it for my Heresy Hump Day today. I have no idea how long I went. I had a lot of topics to go over today. I might have talked very quickly, or maybe it's been way over my hour and I'm just completely delusional. But I hope you guys are having a good week. as I said, I'm going away this weekend with the family, working the beginning of the week, and just working away at these Beastmen and enjoying it. So I will talk to you later. Take care.